This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, all right, everybody. Welcome to the next meeting of the Ad Hoc Cost Efficiencies Committee for July 27th at about 3:15 p.m. And we have a quorum here. We have a couple people absent, but we have enough people to get our meeting going. So we'll just start in and hopefully make this a relatively short but efficient meeting with a little bit of luck here. So let's start off. I don't see anyone for open time for the public. So I'm going to first pull up the minutes from the last thing. I sent them around last night. I'm sorry, I should have gotten them out to you earlier. Are these visible to everybody, or do they need to be bigger?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve. I did get a chance to review them.
Okay.
I did as well. I'll second that.
All right, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Kane, aye.
Ian,
Yep.
aye.
Bradley?
Bradley, aye.
Okay, Fowles eye. All right, perfect. Thank you. Good. All right, that was an easy one. All right. So what I wanted to do, we will get off of these topics of the various things that we still are trying to tidy up here, but I think we have some updates, and I'll just pull up one and see what we know of this. And I think what I'll end up doing, guys, is probably going through maybe with Ed and just kind of talking these through, and I'm going to end up probably filling out these forms since I'm the one that has kind of been insisting on documenting things. But let's just start with what we know on these couple ones. I won't fill it in right now, but I think we've had some progress since our last meeting, so at least we can capture that, and then I'll work at filling in the paperwork afterwards, because again, as I mentioned, I would still like to be able to present something to select board. Probably there's 3 meetings of select board in August, so if not the 16th, then maybe the 30th, just to give them an update about what we've been trying to do here with this committee and let the public know in general. So online permitting, we had talked, I think, in our minutes about the online permitting that the building commissioner uses, this basically this point software, I believe it's called, with a guy named Jim Reagan, and we were going to try and connect with him to have him come in and have a demo with other departments that may have use of his services and the modules that he presents. I don't know if that got scheduled, Ed, or did it?
No, it has not.
Okay. In the meantime, however, I know that something has happened with the assessors. Is that right? That they have gone in a different direction where they have subscribed to some sort of flyover service.
Well, that's a totally different software. So I would say,
right.
No, they have not signed on to a different service.
Oh, they haven't. Okay. Okay. So they haven't. Okay. So I know that they had done nothing yet with point service, but I guess I thought that they had gotten a different software altogether that would not, that maybe they wouldn't want to be part of the point software. Am I totally wrong on that?
Are they different purposes?
They're different purposes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So could you enlighten us then on that a little bit? You know, or Bradley, anybody that knows?
You know how different I am. I could. Will I?
Will you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Basically, the near map is a satellite flyover. It actually, it could potentially be another layer of Munimapper or GIS. GIS, or we use a couple of different layers to it, but you can add as many as you want for different purposes in your communities. And usually they will either benefit one department or multiple departments. I mean, you can add the water department utilizes it for their infrastructure, which, assessors, myself, might not be all that interested in. Usually the flyover maps are very useful for a lot of departments because you can pick up different things on them, like decks that could be added that didn't get building permits, or pools that got added, or sheds or things like that. So might be valuable to a building department to pick up permits or inspections that should have been applied for the assessors. They can pick up value if you've got a neighborhood or neighbor complaint. Might be useful that way. So like I say, you can put a water layer in there, you can put a sewer layer in there. You've got different things you can put in for road points like storm drains and things like that. In this particular case, I mean, one of the things I always found frustrating with using Munimapper is I could go in there and I could see the property parcels and they were laid out with their boundaries, so I could tell, if I wanted to pick on you, Chris, I could basically tell where you're, within a few feet where your property boundaries are supposed to be. But then if I wanted to, overlay that with a satellite map or, whatever, at least the one that's in Munimapper, those property boundaries disappeared. So, for example, if I wanted to know that, I heard you added a shed or whatever, and neighbors were complaining that, geez, it's right on the property line, I had no way to kind of correspond those two things. But with this, you do.
Okay. And is this near map? Is it near mapper? Is that what you said? Near?
I believe it's called Near Map. I might have that backwards, but yeah.
So
Because they
is
had
this,
looked at a couple of different products.
right. Is this the same one that the water folks have already had? Because I remember at one point, Janet, you had mentioned that water already had something.
From GIS, a GS
It was,
system.
yeah. Okay, so I wasn't sure if this was, just what water had already been using and now we were extending it to the assessors, or whether they
No.
just went out and did their own research.
No, what the information that the water department uses is a different layer to that GIS or Munimapper, and rather than actually having, shall we say, the actual picture from the sky, what they have is they have their infrastructure mapped out on that particular layer. So, where the water lines are, where the fire hydrants might be, where their shutoff valves might be.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
That type of thing.
Okay, so this near map thing then is something I know we had seen a transfer at select board. So the Board of Assessors at the end of the fiscal year had enough funds in their budget that they were able to actually purchase this software or a contract with the company. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I believe it was around $16,000 maybe?
Yeah, that includes 3 years of the support on it too.
Right. Okay.
But
So
the
that
16 or 16.5 sounds right.
Okay, so that is now in the hands of the assessors to sort of manage, and that, I think as we go forward, we had talked about certain things that had not been being captured necessarily in terms of some tax items, and this may allow them to capture more things that should be taxed that people had not been up to date with. So I think you had said that they thought it was already going to pay for its worth within the first couple of months.
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that we hadn't totally counted on, but that's happened, so that's good. So there may still be a need to have the point software person come in and talk to us, or is there no interest in having that looked at by other departments like town clerk or whomever else?
We can. I would say it would be the first of a couple, because I wouldn't actually suggest probably implementing it till after we know which direction we're going in our financial software.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we will want to know how it will integrate with a
Right.
new financial software package. But a permitting system, whether it happen to be Point or somebody else, other departments could use it for permitting. But the other advantages are you know, whether it's planning board or the building department or whatever, if you pick that up and you spread that out to, say, again, planning board, conservation, collector treasurer, you know, what have you, is, like I say, well, one use is if that department does permits or what have you, they can use it for permitting. But the other thing is you can share those modules. So instead of passing around a piece of paper for sign-offs like we currently do, it's just automatic and electronic.
Sure, right. So I think that's the kind of thing that we had talked about, that we'd at least like to explore, whether that's point and or investigate another one. But given that point is already in-house, to at least, you know, take a look at that, and then certainly by all means have comparison with another software or two if we need to, just to make sure that we've got what we need, but as well as the support for it. So let's keep that on the list as something we still would like to do. That had been on our last month's list.
Can I just ask a quick
Yes.
question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, to me, having been on the Board of Assessors, I mean, that other software is used differently. So point or whatever it is for building permits could also be definitely utilized by the assessor's office. I don't want to take them off the list of benefactors of that kind of software.
Okay.
It's a software for a different purpose
Yeah.
than the
Okay.
near maps is.
Right. Okay. Well, I think let's still keep the plan of having the point rep schedule some time with us and do a demo or tell us what else can happen with what they offer, what other modules might be useful for us. So let's keep that on the list of things to get done. I think on the financial software, you've had some progress on this, Ed, if you would just fill us in on this.
Yes, we've had the demonstration of the 3 or 4 different modules from Springbook, which is the cloud-based financial software system that the SoftWrite company currently utilizes. So Bradley, Jen, and I took part in those hour to hour and a half three meetings. So we've been through that one. They are going to send us a proposal for what it would cost to convert and a year's support to do that. And then we have 2 meetings scheduled mid-August with Vadar to do a demonstration with their financial software package.
Okay. Great. Okay. So once we get all of that information, we'll be in a position to make a decision of what one seems to make the most sense for us. And I think we had planned on covering some of that cost through the ARPA money. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that cost, it looks like, could be anywhere from $85,000 to $130,000.
Wow. And that includes the conversion and the like a year of support, or?
Yes, and that well, that's, I got to be careful how I say that, because Vadar does not offer a payroll HR module, so we would have to farm that out, which would be an additional cost, and then bring that information in if we went with Vadar. The Springbrook does offer that. Springbrook is also going to give us a estimate as a separate module, as an add-on if we wanted to pick up the utility billing that they offer, which we currently don't utilize. We utilize Point for that now, so that would be an add-on.
Good. Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got a little bit of progress going on here, at least by having SoftWrite come in and give those demonstrations of their product, and see what else we might be able to do with that. And then the next one you said is scheduled for mid-August for them to come in. So that's good.
For Vadar, correct.
Good. All right. Thanks. I see Bob Riggs just joined us. Hi, Bob. Glad you could join in. We're just kind of rehashing some old stuff here, but we're getting closer. I'm not filling in any.
I'm just getting situated.
Hi, Bob.
I'm not filling in any blanks right now. We're just trying to catch up with sort of some progress that's happened over time, but thank you for joining us. Janet, you had a question?
Yeah, just more about the software itself as I represent, different groups. So first of all, does it automate the process for submitting warrants every other week or payroll every other week? Or is that still by hand on paper, passed around and shuffled around? Or does the finance software package address some of that manual stuff?
It addresses a lot of that manual stuff.
Okay, good. It's a technical term stuff. And
Mhm.
and then, so would it help tracking the, like a lot of the grants that we have? Somewhat, somehow?
Well, I can say, at least from going through the Springbrook demonstration so far, that they do offer an awful lot of customizable reports that we don't have, shall we say, at our fingertips now. So I'd have to look into that a little further, but my supposition is, yeah, we could get a lot more information out of their new system.
Okay.
I think some of the challenge with our grants is because we don't get the money up front, with the exception of 2 or 3. Most of it's reimbursable. So, you've got to turn in the receipts for what you've expensed and then get reimbursed. So sometimes it's, whether that software would accommodate that way of the workflow, I don't know. But yeah, that would be wonderful if that did include something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're complicated.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And
Not
when you're
everything
trying to
looks
do
the
multiple
same.
ones, it's a lot, I think, so.
Right, yeah, no, I know. Yeah,
Okay.
so let me just quickly on this one, I'm gonna start from the bottom. So this was computer printer, photocopier maintenance and support. Now, I think you've already made some, I may end up having to break this out. I believe you and Ian have already dealt with the photocopier issue, is that right?
Yes, we actually combined our two needs to get some better pricing. So both of us, through on one order through one vendor, have ordered new leased copiers for the police department and the town hall.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that kind of shared maintenance contract and so forth. And this is also going to tie into figuring out how many or what department is using how many copies or whatever. Is that right? You said it had a meter on it?
Oh, yes, they all have meters on them. As far as probably setting up the one for town hall, probably has, in my opinion, some different, shall we say, needs, or what I think are requirements, than the police department does. But they have the ability to set up codes, individual codes for different departments, so that when you make copies, it will basically records who, what department's making those copies and how many are being made.
So it would charge it right back to their budget lines.
Well, it doesn't necessarily charge it back, but you can see who's utilizing it
Okay.
more or less. So
Okay, all right. And then I think you had mentioned to me at some point that you'd also done something, was it with the not yet the HVAC, but with the generator? Same thing, the two of you had done something with the generator?
yes, actually the water department, the police department, and now the town hall all utilize the same vendor for annual maintenance to the generators. And by Ian letting me know who they used, when I contacted them, they let me know that for this upcoming year, and obviously we didn't have a contract before this, but he said that the contract for this year would be $500 less for the town hall than if we had signed up on our own, and also that the police department's cost for this fiscal year would be $500 less by us combining them.
Okay, and with the water department too, or?
No, I mean, just the two of us would say the $500.
Okay, and who's the vendor on that?
That is Anchor Electric out of Agawam.
Okay, good. So that's a new contract essentially.
Well, it's a new contract for me
Yeah, okay,
Yeah. here at
Great.
I've
town.
had it for 2 years, Chris.
yeah, okay. Great, all right. And then I think then back up to where we were heading with the, I believe this was the HVAC one, where we had looked at between HVAC and boilers. Were they together on the same thing, or are they two separate ones? I'm forgetting.
They're right now, the school has a contract for a separate contract for that, and the town hall has a separate contract for that. And currently, the police department does not.
Right, but is it HVAC and boilers together, or is it just HVAC?
I consider HVAC of all systems, whether they're boilers, furnaces, or what have you. So
Okay, okay. So I know we were about to renew these contracts and had been looking at I think it was BG, right?
Yes.
BG Mechanical.
because they're the ones that currently service both the Norris and the town hall.
Right. And they had talked about a discount. I think when Eliza had talked to them about maybe an 8% or so discount for whatever, if there was a combined contract. Has that been issued yet or not yet? Have we entered into the contract?
Not yet. I got to reach out to them because I think there's actually two different, shall we say, salespeople that were doing those two. So I got to see what we got to do to combine them.
Okay. And that would include the police as well this time?
We could.
Okay. And I think we talked about it, I think at one of our earlier meetings about whether or not, just for the sake of transparency and also just being sure that we've got a decent price, do we want to find another price from another vendor?
At this point in time, I would probably say, let's stick with the original vendor. And then when this contract is up, that we take a look at multiple vendors.
So what would be the year that we would we do a 3-year contract, or what would this one be?
I will have to find out from B&G what they usually do. I mean, the one for, I think the one for the school has been multiple years. The one for this building, we're basically on a year to year. So I'd have to find out if there's an advantage to doing a multiple year or not.
Right. Okay. Because I think, as you guys had both passed around the contracts that you had with them, and a lot of that looked like very standard language. There was nothing terribly specific, except they listed the equipment for the town hall and the equipment for the school. That was about it in terms of how many things there were. Yeah.
And they listed what was done in those quarterly or semi-annual, shall we say, and they're not just inspections, but services.
Okay. All right. And then I think a lot of this, the filters and so forth that the school had were very different ones, that they may even have a separate company or something that has to deal with those rather than BG Mechanical, if I remember.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're still working on that, but hopefully we can nail that down. And, maybe it's only a year-long contract and then we go out for bids after that. But to get something in place that at least combines them, sounds like it would be at least some bit of a cost savings there. So, okay.
Sure.
All right. Anybody have any questions or thoughts about that? I mean, I think in general, we had talked about it, not just because of this committee, but in general, I think we want to model as many best practices as we can. And so in general, when contracts are coming up, I think it's a good idea in general to go back out and, even if we end up staying with the same vendor, we've at least gone out and done our due diligence to double check and see who else is out there and what else that they may, they may offer us too. So sometimes people are ready for a new business and they can offer us a good deal that we might not have been expecting. So I think when the time is right, we need to be able to take advantage of that as well. But
Chris, and just like maybe I missed.
yeah, go ahead,
These
Bob. Yeah.
What are the dates on these contracts? When do they run from 1 to 1?
Sorry, Bob, go ahead. I can't hear you too loudly.
When do these contracts terminate, the current ones?
The current contract, I'm thinking it's like this month, isn't it, Ed, for it's July or August, I'm believing?
It is, at least for town hall. I'd have to go back and take a closer look at the school department one and see it has a different date on it.
Uh-huh. Did you have some thoughts, Bob?
Well, I guess it's kind of late to negotiate on these now anyways, and if they run out that soon. So,
Well, I mean, I think there's time to, let them realize that we'd like to combine these and see what they can offer us, I think.
yeah, although if it ends at the end of July.
Yeah.
That's Friday.
True, yeah.
But anyways, I mean, I guess it's a step in the right direction. Unless there's a large financial gain for going for multi-year contracts, I wouldn't go longer than a year on any of them.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Is that, yeah, so talk to us maybe a little bit about, sort of good practices from your business point of view.
Well, I think 90 days before these terminate, it would have been nice to get just a couple of different prices.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see, if I'm reading this correctly, that because it's under $50,000, that it doesn't have to go out to bid. It could be put out just to get quotes.
Right.
I have nothing against doing business with people that have been giving you good service, but it's always interesting to compare costs and level of service.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. No, valid points there. So good. Okay. All right. Just gonna stop sharing that for a minute because I lost something here. We'll try this again. Let me get this back one here. One more last one. So then the last one I think was back on our famous office supply. I got the wrong one again. Oh, come on. The office supply one, and I know Bradley, you had been still looking at some things. You'd sent me a list of a few of the vendors that were sort of the common vendors and ones that would probably be the ones that we would end up recommending for use for the purchase of certain supplies from paper to therefore. So we should be able to nail that one down pretty quickly, shouldn't we?
I think so. With
I
the 7 responses from the departments, I
Yeah.
had 13 vendors, and eliminating the ones that are specific to the departments, there's 10. So we have 10 there. So Richco, Amazon, WB Mason, Toilet Distilled Water, Paradise Copies, Quill, Informed Business Systems, Road Art, Staples, and United Business Supplies.
Okay. All right. And is it evident? I mean, the water one, that's got to be the water bottle supply. Is that that's pretty easy, I guess. But again, I mean, do we have different water coolers at different offices where we're getting water supplied from other places, or is that all one vendor right now?
I would have to check.
Yeah.
See if we have any other water vendors.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I would think that would be sensible to have one water vendor for anybody who's got water coolers at their offices, but I don't know if we do that. Okay. All right. And then I think Quill, WB Mason, Richco those are the ones that I remember seeing a lot on the warrants that people put forward, and then Amazon and Staples kind of end up being a go-to as well. But it seems like if we could narrow down, this is the vendor when we need paper or we need, file folders, whatever, this is the vendor we'd like you to go to. So let's see if we can't maybe get a little bit more precise, because I think as we're beginning a new fiscal year, I'd like us to be able to get some instructions out to the department heads, as a result of this committee after we talk about it at select board. But I mean, to give people some guidance as to how we can kind of narrow down our multiple vendors here. But yeah, Janet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to take you backwards, but my
Nope.
phone was ringing, so I muted myself.
That's okay.
I just wanted to go back to Bob's comment. I think he asked a question, if there are any advantages to 3 years versus a 1-year contract? And I don't know that I thought he posed that question, and maybe Bob, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I thought I heard you ask. If, would you go into a multi-year contract unless there's a financial advantage? So,
Uh-huh.
Right. Unless there's a good advantage, why bother? Why not just commit to 12 months?
Uh-huh.
and I just didn't think I think I kind of buried underneath, I think the
Yeah.
other part of the conversation. So,
Yeah. I don't know, Ed, I think we're allowed to do up to a 3-year. Is that right? Under certain circumstances?
We are, and then the question is, you know, what is that contract for? You know, are there service or cost advantages to doing a 3-year contract versus a 1-year contract?
Mhm.
And then I'm also going to throw this in there too, is guess what? You also have to realize that when you're utilizing a chief procurement officer, even if there isn't a financial advantage, is there capacity to do those contracts, of renegotiate them every year? Or is the advantage the fact that splitting contracts up over different years because you only have one person doing that bidding works?
Mhm. So in other words, staggering might be something. So one could be 1 year, another could be 3 years, et cetera, so that they're not all expiring at the same time, is what you're trying to say, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or other benefits other than straight cost.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Time is involved as well. Okay.
does that answer Bob's question?
Yeah.
No,
Bob, is that?
I would be totally satisfied if we'd had 3 prices. That's all. So I'm just trying to make a point that maybe next time around that there's a little more homework done in advance. Because to me, it's an expensive item. It's more than buying paper clips. Those all add up to a lot.
Yeah.
And
No, they
so
do.
it's good to, pennies make dollars. I get it. But at the same time, these are dollars, and it's a pretty good number.
Mm-hmm.
There's some savings there.
Right.
Nice to get them.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. No, especially on the HVAC contract alone, I'm thinking they were somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 or something a year.
I was floored by the number. That doesn't mean it's not justified, but it floored me.
Yeah.
It costs that much money, and
Right.
so
Gotcha.
that's all.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this one I'm going to stop sharing. So I think, Bradley and I and Ed, maybe we can work on sort of tidying up these papers and being done with them and getting them into place, because I think we can show certain things that we've tried to do to improve both efficiency as well as investigate some cost saving measures, which will carry us through in the future here. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and we won't have a long meeting here, I just wanted to share, after our last meeting, Bradley was extremely helpful and put together the spreadsheet again, talking about, and I did not go back to John's spreadsheet. John's is another spreadsheet from DLS that will help us, I think, project forward as we get into our budget season. But this then finally is a combined spreadsheet that shows from FY18 to the present, FY18, the original budget, how many different transfers, the amount of transfers we had within that budget, and then the final expenditure for FY18, and the same for 19, 20, and 21. And then I just went through and I just highlighted things that I know that we talk about a lot. Some of this is software support that we've been talking about here, or gas and electric at town hall, or software support, legal expenses, et cetera, are ones that we often talk about a lot in our meetings, at least with select board and finance. And then just taking a look at how things have changed over time. So I just picked some random ones to highlight, but I have not really done any serious analysis with this. Bradley got this to me a couple of days ago. And so I just wanted to scroll down just to show you the final numbers here from the general fund point of view. I think we had talked about last time that, looking backward is also helpful as much as we need to look forward. This gives us a little bit of an idea of where we've been. So for example, in FY18, our original budget amount was 16,002. And with transfers and wherever some other money came in, I'm not totally positive on that without looking at it. We ended up at 16.9. So that's how that evolves over time. So the blue is the actual expenditure for that fiscal year, and the green is the budgeted amount for that year. And all I did was, I'm going to scroll over a little bit. I got all my people in my way here. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to shrink you guys a little bit. All right. So just popping over here. So 20, for example, original was 17.7 million, and we ended up spending about $500,000 more than that at 18.2 in terms of actual expenditure. And in 2021, which we've just sort of gotten through, that was another one too, where we budgeted 17.9 and we spent just a little bit over 18. This is the year where we didn't have very many transfers. FY20, 21, very few transfers in FY21 comparatively. The total amount of transfers on average over the 5-year period was about $360,000. This is an outlier where this year there was hardly, anything of big value to transfer.
Maybe
This
COVID related, right? I mean, there may not
could very well have been, yeah, because that would have been FY21. So, yep. And FY22, we were back at around almost the $400,000 mark. So that's pretty much standard from what we're seeing in terms of where we have to modify our budget, during the year at some point in time. And just for what it's worth, like I say, I haven't had time to really analyze this, and I wanted to get people's opinion as to where we could go with this. But for the amount budgeted in FY18 to the amount we just budgeted right now, over that time, that's been a $2.8 million difference from where we started back in 18 at 16.2, and now we're up to what we just approved at 19. So that's a 17% increase in approved budget over a 5-year time period. The actual expenditures through last year is about $1.8 million. So that's about a 11%. Again, this is over those 5-year periods. So just kind of interesting to see what the trend is a little bit, but I'm hoping we can use this tool somehow going forward as we look at budgeting, not only looking at the tool that John was showing Bradley in terms of the DLS spreadsheet that he had access to, but taking a look at all our past reality and see how we can combine the two. And I think I was trying to figure out too, as we look at in more detail, where we tend to need to shift all the time. What are some of the lines where we're constantly having to shift, and then that should help inform us maybe in terms of our budgeting. If we know, I think I brought up the example once before about the tree warden, that we've always had to shift the tree warden, and we finally increased the budget to a point where we were equaling a large part of the shift that he's always been requesting. So I'm hoping this will take us somewhere forward. I'm not positive yet on how to play with it, but then one other thing that comes to my mind is things like the reserve fund. I think as a town, I honestly do not know what our desirable reserve fund is, but sometimes, we don't really have that little pocket of money to run back to. When we've got an emergency of some sort, we have nothing to fall back on. And in 18, we started out at 5,000 as reserve fund. Same in 19, I believe. 20, we didn't have any money in the reserve fund at all. Somehow got through that.
Yeah, then we transferred though, right?
Ended
up with 4,200 in it.
Yes. So we had to use money in there. We had nothing budgeted. We had to use some money in there. And then same thing in 21. Let's see, I'm gonna lose track of my place here. Sorry. 20 to 21, nothing in here. And looks like we didn't transfer anything in or out in 21. And then in 22, we had at least brought it back to a budget of 2,000. And then right now, I think in our current budget, we're back up to 5,000 for FY23. So just to say, you know, we've been kind of skating by with minimal reserve funds, and I don't know, you know, where we should be. Ed, maybe you can enlighten us about what would be a typical amount of money for a reserve fund, but it just feels like we're, you know, this just shows us, I think, that we're operating on some thin edges here, that we don't have a lot of deep pockets to go to when we have an emergency. So that was just one thing I thought was kind of interesting. But I guess I'm assuming we should have at least a $10,000 or $15,000 reserve fund. Ed, is that somewhat normal for a town our size? Yep. Is Ed frozen in time? Oh, he's there.
I'm
Sorry.
still here.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, just wondering in terms of what you thought would be the a logical amount of a reserve fund, for example, as we go forward in budgeting, given that we've never exceeded 5,000 in the last 5 years, and it's been less than that over time. But it just feels like that's one thing as we look at budgeting forward, that something we ought to look at.
Yeah, I mean, to me, an appropriate amount would be between somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, we're way off of that one. I would have
We
said, I would have, like I said, I was in the 15,000 range, but okay. So yeah. So I mean, if we wanted to do that, then that just goes into showing about, you know, where do we find this money? So I mean, I'm just hoping that as we get going into this and do some level of analysis, we can get a better sense of where the costs are that we have to keep track of it. And since we have this, I'll send this around. I didn't send it yet, but I will send it around to everybody. And so this, Bradley, you've done 18, 19 each fiscal year, right? And then you've combined them all in this sheet. So you can look at this combined sheet, I think is the best one. And then the transfers are just the transfer of where everything got transferred out at every given fiscal year. So you can take a look at that. Okay. So I think this would be useful just to pass around, and then we can figure out how we might want to use it as a tool. I think, Ed, you had mentioned at one point in time that rather than having subtotals, because sometimes the subtotals don't really tell us a lot. A lot of different things get included in some categories. So the subtotal is kind of, it's not that it's not relevant, it just, we're not necessarily comparing apples and apples. So, you know, something here like under whatever, this is under public safety, I think for Ian and John, for example. Losing track of this category here, come back. So there would be a few things that, you know, you could do a subtotal under police, a subtotal under highway, a subtotal for, you know,
Fire, EMS, right?
Fire, EMS, etc., rather than having it all in one big lump sum category, because this, you know, total of protection, persons and property, that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. But we could, you know, break it down into department and look at it in a little bit more detail. Same with the school. We've got basically tuition and transport and operating costs to take a look at how that has changed a bit over time. Not as much as I might have thought, actually, tell you the truth. But
and then it even gets, you know, the most convoluted under general government.
Right, up above, yeah. Right, because we've got a lot of mixtures of people and different departments involved there.
Yeah.
And other things as well. So, yeah, go ahead, Robert. Bob.
When you transfer money on these transfers versus original, what is that?
So we're basically, somebody's risking overspending in their department, and they're going to try and transfer money from another line. First of all, line within their own budget. We don't want to incur deficit spending. So we're going to encourage them to look first within their own budget to see if they have another line where they're not spending as much for whatever reason, that they could make up that shortfall and get themselves whole. And if that didn't work, then they would have to come to us and work with Ed to figure out where else we could take it from in the budget that is not within their own department. But Ed, go ahead and correct me on that.
Well,
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Ed, before you speak, let me just follow up just one.
Yep.
So when you have your original budget,
Yep.
go all the way down to the bottom line, and then you have your transfers, you go all the way down to the bottom line, and the final is higher. Where did that difference come from?
Yeah, well, if it's not in the revenue that we projected, so I think that's what Bob's asking, where did we find $535,000 if we didn't have it to expend? Is that money that may have come from another line item, or is that money that came from?
I mean, it looks like deficit spending if you just look at it, for face value. So I'm just curious, like, what is that? Where did that 500,000 come from? Because if I understand this, it looks like you really spent, going back to 18, basically 70 million, and you were targeting 16.3.
I mean, is it free cash? Is it, I mean, do we
Yeah.
really add 535,000, or is that taken from
Well-
one item to another?
Well, take a look at the very bottom line other than the subtotal. See that 317,670
Mhm.
transfer to stabilization?
Yes.
Well, that's generated just from the free cash, shall we say, distribution.
So I mean,
That's money that's not spent at the end of the fiscal year.
yeah, I mean, we live this every
Well,
day.
no, it's money that became available during that fiscal year, got transferred into stabilization, and then, very possibly actually got expended in the following fiscal year.
Is that
Okay.
mostly from free cash, Ed? I mean, is that
What's that?
mostly, when we get free cash and we divide it up into the 3 or 4 different buckets, right? Is that stabilization is part of that?
Right, basically sometime between usually November and January, we get free cash certified. And depending on when we have a special town meeting or distribute that, we have a policy that puts 35% into capital stabilization, 25% into operating, and 10% into OPEB, which leaves 25% of it to be spent elsewhere. So I mean, yes, that could be spent during that particular fiscal year on something, or it very possibly may end up getting distributed at the annual town meeting to be spent in the following fiscal year.
Okay, so that's basically, it's excess revenue though, right? That's accumulated.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say too, that perhaps depending on our projections of revenue, sometimes the government aid coming in from the state might be more than we had anticipated too. I don't know.
Well, we'd have to appropriate that if that was the case.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess my
Alright.
question would be, other departments that year after year consistently don't manage their budgets that for some reason?
Well,
Let's say, and
it's all dead.
I'm not sure.
there.
I'm not sure if Bradley has captured just transfers here or transfers in additional appropriations, because I can't tell you when I came here in fiscal year 2018 at that special town meeting that was held 2 days after I started my job. And I'm just going by my memory. I think there was somewhere around, I don't know, $80,000 that ended up getting put or added to the fire EMS budget so that the fire EMS could be a 24/7 operation.
Yeah.
So if we were as a town able to bank that instead of spending it because people weren't able, I mean, the budgets we give them are not always the budgets they request either, and I know that clearly.
Yep.
Where would that money end up being, and what that would be more towards some of the big capital items that we would want? Or, I mean, I guess that's question. I mean,
you've got your transfers to capital fund here, right? Which is not that much.
Right. So if we built up capital and built up stabilization, and I'm just saying that, look from it as from an outsider that hasn't served on committees for their lives.
Well, basically, number one, if you could do that, the bond companies are gonna like you a heck of a lot better and give you a better bond rating. Okay, because we aren't at the percentage of, shall we say, of having a total of rainy day funds that is about 10% of our budget. But on the flip side of that, and I did get into this somewhat this year with one of the capital committee recommendations that they don't spend all the capital, that they bank some. Well, you know, when you can't, shall we say, purchase or acquire what you already need in that particular year, does it make any sense at all to bank something and make maybe 2 or 2.5% interest on it when the item that you need to purchase and are defraying to another year has an inflationary cost of 5 to 7% on it, or maybe 10% when you get into construction?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Yep. And then on the transfer to stabilization, correct me if I'm wrong, the money that we have from the enterprise fund, from the water enterprise fund, and then also from the transfer station, some of that money goes into stabilization as well, right?
None of it goes into stabilization.
Where does it go?
They keep it.
Are you referring to the equivalent of certifying free cash for an enterprise fund, which would be certifying retained earnings?
Oh, maybe that's what I mean. Okay.
Yes, that you'd be correct on, but it doesn't flow into the stabilization.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, this is something I will send it around to people so you'll have a chance to look at. But I think, you know, as we get into whatever our next level is going to be, this should be a bit of help to sort of look down and do some, you know, some level of analysis at various department levels or particular items that we always seem to be overspending on, informing us hopefully of our budget, you know, budget decisions going forward, I would hope. But if anybody has any thoughts about how to best use that, we won't be getting into their budget until what, probably December, January, we'll be starting to look at budget issues. But at least we've got this part already kind of outlined for us with actual expenditures, which I think is great. So thanks, Bradley, for putting all that together. That really does help give us a backwards perspective, I think. And then
Yeah,
we
it's a
can
big help.
Yeah, and if we can see, you know, with the thing that John had handed out from DLS, I know that's still got to be completed. It's not fully complete, right, Bradley? I think there had to be more information put in there, but once it was, I got the impression that by filling in a year or two, then that would generate kind of automatically going forward.
Yes, it would forecast.
Forecasting in terms of, okay, sounds good. Okay. All right, so that's basically all I wanted to kind of cover today. Does anybody have any thoughts about where we would like to take this decision-making committee forward? You know, we've been trying to look at improved cost savings and efficiencies, and I think we're making headway there. And I do want to, I will get some things written up and I'll circulate them around, but it's something that I would like to share with Select Board and let them know what kinds of things have happened, whether it's, you know, software, whether it's maintenance contracts, whether it's things that, you know, seemingly don't seem to be that big a deal, but hopefully will give us both some time efficiency and better productivity within town hall, as well as some cost savings. But I'm open to suggestions for future direction of what we want to tackle. We thought we had sort of looked at the lowest hanging fruit. So I don't know where we are on the tree in terms of what next we need to grab and try to take a look at as a committee before we get into the budget itself. What would be helpful to anybody?
I do look forward to seeing the shared point, whether it's Point or another software, so to help efficiencies between all those departments in town hall. I mean, I think there's some good value in that, and
have that electronic signature and approvals, you mean?
yeah. Yeah, and I also would like, I know Eric was I was a little disappointed with Eric's ability to share similar towns structure and look at best practices. It just never kind of
Right.
happened, so.
Yeah, he wasn't really focused the day that he joined us.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I should, yeah, maybe let me just see what his schedule is and I could reach out to him and see if he's got some time to give us a little bit more more precision in terms of what he's learned from other towns and things about what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's
terms of-
just me. I mean, I don't know what other people think, you know, I
Yeah,
just,
no, I think that was kind of our next layer, was looking a little bit at, shared services, what might be possibly regionalized, what do we have to offer to other towns? What could we maybe save on by getting the service through another town? So that was kind of where we were aiming. If that's where we think we want to go, then we probably need to do a little bit of homework first before we have another meeting on that. But I can certainly have a chat with Eric and find out more about what Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has been doing with other towns and see what would fit, our needs as well.
Yeah, and I was a little frustrated when I reached out to the Franklin County Regional Council of Governments. I mean, they do have some great programs for shared services, but because we're utilizing them now and Hampshire County went out, is, I talked to them and it's really too far for cost efficiencies from them traveling in from Franklin County to here, whether it happened to be, for accounting or, health or, something else. So I was a little frustrated by that.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. All right. Well, I don't have any particular thoughts, but I will be glad to entertain some. Shall we maybe aim at meeting toward the end of August? I think people are kind of taking some breaks here and there during the last few days of July and into August as much as they can. So we could put off a meeting until perhaps after we pull together the narrative. What I could do would be to pull together the narrative on some of those forms that I had created, and then we can share those with select board. Like I say, the next meeting will be the 16th or the 30th, so we could maybe meet right before that last meeting or something. I'm trying to think, maybe the 24th or something like that, to kind of just take a look at those, and then I'll do a little bit more thinking and talking to Eric and see where we can go for our agenda going forward. I don't think we need to, I mean, to the extent you want to do some, self, looking at the budget yourself and the spreadsheet that I'll send around and see what kind of things that you'd like to note. You might find something that would, raise questions in your mind about how come this jumped from here to here, et cetera. Feel free to do any of that. Just trying to get an idea of where our trends are, and are we pricing ourselves out of out of the reality in terms of managing this town. But I think we all want to be able to manage the budget well and provide the services that the residents expect. And unfortunately, I think many of them don't realize the cost of the services that we do provide already. And trying to educate them a little bit about that is another challenge I think we all have. But
so when our terms are 1 year, I just want to mention that, if our terms are all 1 year, I don't, just to think about what the plan is to bring someone else,
right,
from our representative group in to take our place, or I know we're not there yet, but it'll be here before we know it. So.
Yeah, no, in another 2-3 months, we'll be kind of down in that area, I think. I know we didn't start meeting until I'm thinking January-ish, February. But we'll have to go back and look at the charge and see when we were formed and what our time frame was there. Yeah, good point. Thank you on that. So
and I've got one more idea for cost savings at town hall, and it's not a big one, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of this myself. However, more and more restrooms that I walk into, you've only got an option for a hand dryer, and paper towels aren't available to you, and that's supposed to be more sustainable. So what if we happen to eliminate the paper towel dispensers here at the town hall?
I thought we did that 1 year and then they brought them back. I'm, it could be my brain, but I really thought we eliminated paper towels and just did exactly what you said. And for some reason, either the Board of Health or the Health Department brought them. I could be making this up, but I really thought that happened. So
Okay.
All I know is like the year before I got here is the year that they tried to align everything with the Norris School for purchasing of, shall we say, those type of materials. And I know the toilet paper dispensers and the hand towel dispensers all got swapped out, but there were paper towel dispensers here when I got here.
okay.
I mean, that might be an interesting idea in terms of some longer term sustainability issues. Certainly the reduction of paper is not a bad thing. And you're right. I mean, most places I go to in a public restroom, you would find hand dryers more so than anything else. Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Well, worth investigating at least.
Yeah. And like
Okay.
I said, I'd be interested in to hear what, on that topic of what the other members of the committee thought. So.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, if anybody has any other great ideas, feel free to pass them around. Even if we're not in a meeting, just shoot an email around and we'll, put it on the list of things to look at. Okay.
Just real quickly, do any of the board members, reach out to any of the other towns within the district, within the Hampshire Regional School District, to see if they're having similar issues and maybe some of their solutions or consideration of regionalization of services within the district?
To the schools themselves, you mean, or?
No, or even, I know, for instance, maybe a smaller town like West Hampton might not have the same, for instance, I know Jen is a treasurer in West Hampton as well as Southampton. Are there other services that perhaps that they would consider regionalization with, or maybe even some of the other, because there's already a relationship, is there any other services that they consider? It's just throwing it out there. I'm just wondering if there's been communication between other boards.
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't know, Ed, with your, the various town administrator forums that you're involved with. I don't know if you've had chats with folks in West Hampton or anybody like that, or Montgomery or Huntington or whomever around.
Nothing like, shall we say, in general that Ian's talking about, but it might be, worth reaching out to and finding out from those, of the 5 communities that make up the Hampshire Regional School District.
Yeah. At least, that way. I mean, again, some of them are just, I mentioned Montgomery and Huntington just because they're a little bit closer, even though they're not our school district. I mean, that's the challenge, I think, when you've got Chesterfield and Goshen and Williamsburg, that's, again, our distance sometimes gets people thinking that they can't do things, whereas, it's not that far, but it is farther. So, yeah, but that's not a bad idea to reach out and see if we can figure out something, maybe talking to the town administrator or the chairs of the select board or something like that to find out those kinds of things. I kind of had hoped that that's where Eric Weiss from PVPC would help us too. I mean, I knew that he knew things about Chester and Blandford and all those kinds of things, but anyway, I'll see if I can refocus his attention on us and maybe we can get something more clear from him. Okay. Good. Well, that's a good one. So let's, how does, just tentatively, how does the, what did I say? August 24th sound? That's a Wednesday. Okay. All right. Well, let's pencil that one in. And in the meantime, I'll do some other digging and get an agenda together that makes some sense for us. And we'll take it from there. Okay.
Sounds good.
Good. Well, thanks everybody for joining in today. I really appreciate it. I know everybody's got lots of things going on, so appreciate you tuning in. And if we have nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
I
Illingsworth, aye.
Fowles, aye. Bradley, aye. Yep. I hear you, I think. Okay. And Bob? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so let's call ourselves adjourned at 4:18. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye now.